The courtroom was tense, every eye fixed on the witness stand where a little girl sat nervously, clutching the stuffed toy in her lap. She was the key witness in a difficult case, one that had shaken the community. Beside her sat her service dog, a gentle golden retriever trained to provide emotional support. As the questions from the attorney grew more intense, the girl's eyes welled with tears. Then, without a word, she made a small hand signal, barely noticeable, but deliberate. To most in the room, it seemed like a nervous fidget. But to her dog, it was a secret code they had practiced many times. The dog immediately stood up, placed his front paws on the bench, and let out a soft bark. The entire courtroom froze. The judge looked stunned, the attorneys paused mid-sentence, and the spectators exchanged confused glances. But the moment broke the tension. The judge, recognizing the signal's meaning from earlier briefings about the girl's needs, called a recess. The courtroom shifted from stunned silence to deep empathy. In just a single, silent gesture, the girl had communicated her distress and her dog had answered. It was a reminder that courage often speaks in whispers. It was supposed to be just another day in court, but everything changed the moment the little girl took the stand. Small and quiet, she clutched her service dog's leash with trembling fingers. Her presence was already unusual, rarely did a child testify in such serious cases, but it was the bond between her and the dog that would leave the entire room breathless. As the questioning began, her voice was barely a whisper. The defense attorney's words were sharp, probing, and unrelenting. The little girl's eyes darted nervously, her breathing shallow. Then it happened, so quick and subtle that most missed it. She touched her thumb to her palm, a tiny signal only her dog understood. Without hesitation, the golden retriever rose, gently placed his head on her knee, and let out a soft whimper. The judge leaned forward. The attorneys fell silent. The gallery froze. In that instant, time seemed to stop. The signal wasn't rehearsed testimony or courtroom drama, it was raw, human emotion wrapped in trust and silent understanding. The courtroom held its breath, not out of suspense, but in reverence. That small act of love and protection said more than any words ever could. The courtroom was filled with murmurs and the clicking of keyboards as the trial proceeded. At the center sat a young girl, no older than 9, brought in to testify in a case that had gripped the community. She was flanked by her service dog, a calm and watchful golden retriever trained to support her through trauma. As the prosecutor gently asked questions, the girl responded quietly, her voice wavering but steady. But when the defense began cross-examination, the tone shifted. The girl's hands began to tremble. She avoided eye contact and pulled the leash closer. Then, almost imperceptibly, she made a small, rehearsed gesture, just a flick of her fingers. Her dog immediately responded, standing and placing a paw on her leg. The sudden movement drew everyone's attention. The judge leaned forward, puzzled. The defense paused. And just like that, the entire room fell silent. The judge, informed beforehand of the girl's training with her service dog, quickly recognized the signal. Without hesitation, he called for an immediate recess. The trial came to a halt, not from legal drama, but from the silent power of trust between a child and her companion, a gesture that spoke volumes without a single word. It was a high-profile case, one that had drawn media attention and filled the courtroom seats. But no one expected the most powerful moment to come from a child and her dog. She was small, barely able to see over the witness stand, and visibly nervous as she took her seat. By her side sat her loyal service dog, a golden retriever trained to help her cope with anxiety and trauma. The courtroom had been instructed to allow the dog to remain with her, but no one imagined just how vital his presence would be. As questioning began, the little girl answered with soft, trembling words. But as the defense attorney pressed harder, her composure began to falter. Her hand slipped down beside her, and with a subtle motion, she gave a silent command. Instantly, her dog rose, leaned against her, and let out a low, alert whine. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. The judge's gavel froze midair. Lawyers and spectators sat stunned. The signal had been invisible to most, but it was a cry for help the dog understood without hesitation. The trial paused, not due to legal objections, but from a moment so raw and real it left the entire courtroom in shock.